we go. So good morning. Clearly you know who I am, Christine, but I will still introduce myself. I am Karen, and joining me is
Daniel Jordan.
Thanks, Daniel. So clearly we're both a part of the CETL team, and we'll be talking with you today about using your course shell to support instruction. So
Wait
the
a
session
minute.
is being
Really? Am I the only one?
you what?
I mean, if you need to reschedule, it's okay.
No, it's okay because we're
I mean,
recording.
really?
So
Are you sure?
Yes, we'll
Okay.
host it on the.
Okay.
We're recording it, so the recording will be available for others too, for their viewing pleasure on our
Okay.
programs and services webinar page. So.
All right. Sorry about that.
No,
All
you're good. You're good. And Daniel, if you don't mind monitoring the chat. I see two thingies there so far. So anyway, so what we will cover today. So we'll talk about the content area, creating a module, uploading content, including existing activities, creating assignments, using the D2L, using D2L to support in-class teaching and learning, building stronger feedback cycles, creating opportunities for extra practice, and of course, some final thoughts and questions. And we will be happy to demonstrate anything that we cover for you. So to begin with, creating modules. It's easy to think that the learning management system, the LMS, is only used for fully online courses or those specifically designed to be hybrid. If you teach a class that regularly meets in person, why would you consider using an LMS? The answer is that online tools available in an LMS like D2L offer a one-stop solution for the out-of-class support students that they're expecting. Therefore, there are benefits to adding content to your course for on-ground and online courses. With that, the content area in D2L is the primary place to add files and other learning materials and share them with students. It can also be used to organize all the course activities. You can share readings, course materials, handouts, other course content with the students, upload these files quickly in an organized way, and it's the most efficient way to ensure they have quick, reliable access to important files. Plus, it may save you, hopefully, time from answering questions from your students on what they missed or what they need. If you're unsure of what to do, use your syllabus as a guide. When thinking about what content to include in your course site, start with your syllabus. Your syllabus already outlines what topics the course will cover, when and how students will be graded, and a description of any assignments and exams. Bringing these learning materials and activities to life inside your course can be as simple as just transferring the information contained in your syllabus onto the appropriate parts of D2L. Plus, with advanced planning, it will save you considerable time in constructing your course. To keep from overwhelming your students with a large quantity of work at once, it's important to chunk your content in a logical, intuitive way. Whichever method you choose, make sure it's intuitive and followed consistently throughout the course. A well-structured course will be easy for your students to navigate, allowing them to focus on the content of your course rather than where to locate a given resource. Considerations for your organization and structure of your course should happen throughout the design process, but have a plan at the beginning. And also review as you build to identify the areas that should be clarified. So before we proceed, let's throw it out to you. What do you do or have you done with your course shell? Anybody would like to answer?
If anybody, anyone. So I have recently helped out in a course by creating quizzes. And it wasn't part of the original course. So I added the quizzes and they were just for 0 points and not required, but we had pretty good participation anyway, because we encouraged them to participate. And it was kind of like a gamified sort of thing. It was actually with DBA 701 to try to help students learn APA a little bit better. So that's my only experience. Every once in a while, I add things to courses. but then it doesn't get copied over. And so then I have to like upload it and do it again, or I don't know, with the courses that I'm embedded in, it doesn't really stick because I'm not the course like person. So, but anyway, at least I have some experience messing around with it. I always try to be very, very careful though, because I'm worried I'm going to really mess something up, delete something, or I don't know. I just feel like I don't know enough about it, and I'm in there kind of like a visitor. So I have to kind of tiptoe around and be careful that I'm not doing something that I shouldn't be. And I always ask the professors first, hey, you have a document. This is APA 6. Can we get that out of there and put this APA 7 document instead? That kind of thing. And then as an embedded librarian, I have posted links and stuff like that in there, but I have to do it every semester, and I have to do it in every course that I'm embedded in. It doesn't just get saved or carried over. So I'm not really building a course.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing. Anyone else in the team want to share any of their experiences with the content area or their course structure, etc.?
Well, I have done quite a lot: quizzes, surveys, different types of assessments. But currently I'm struggling, like just before coming to this webinar, I'm struggling with deleting old key assignments, the ones that were connected to chalk and wire. So I was wondering if you have heard anybody else having the same problem, and so who would be the best person to contact, because last semester Karen Hans' team was not able to help me. So do you have any updates about this? Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. Myself, I have not heard of anyone else experiencing this, but we can connect after the call, and I could help you out with that if that works for you.
You can help me, you say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can I send you an email after the webinar so we can schedule a session?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on. All right. So one of the first steps in using your D2L course shells to create your modules. And your modules are the containers for content and activities within D2L. They provide the organizational structure for the course. While most modules are organized by weeks, they can also be personalized by topics, projects, resources, introductory materials, classroom community spaces. Once a module has been created, they're listed in a courses table of contents and provide the structure for your class. A module must be created before your files can be added to D2L. Instructors can arrange your content by changing the order of the modules or topics, moving your topics from module to another, and nesting one module within another. Modules and topics can also be hidden or deleted in the content area. You can set date restrictions for deadlines, availability items for content, such as when students can access materials or when assignments are due. And you can also add descriptions. Some best practices to keep in mind is create a getting started module to house your key course items, such as your syllabus, schedule, other critical items that students should be aware of when starting a course. Instructors should make sure that modules and topic titles are clearly labeled and easily identifiable. Each week or module of your course should ideally contain an organizer or overview page that informs students about that week's activities. Organizer page can be thought of as a letter to your students that provide an introduction to a given topic, defines learning objectives, and details all readings or assignments that can be completed. All right, so Adding and organizing content in your course is easy, but it can be time consuming until you learn a few tricks. Content includes all the items that are part of your course, and D2L allows you to place items in your course in a variety of ways. So you have the upload files, which allows the upload of common files such as PDFs, docs, PowerPoint. These files are displayed within a document viewer in the content area. You could upload videos or audio files via the link or by embedding multimedia such as Flipgrid or Padlet. We hear about those quite a bit. And by embedding your objects means that learners are able to interact with external items inside their D2L course cell rather than following the links and opening new windows. You could create a file and also include the embedded multimedia via the insert stuff option. You could apply an HTML template via the select the document template button, which customizes your topic according to your needs. With individual items in your course, be consistent with your terminologies. Don't flip back and forth between assignments and projects, call them one or the other. Particularly for activities such as assignments, quizzes, discussions, consider including the type of activity in the item name. Make sure to differentiate between required content, optional, or supplemental content. Try to keep your content clean, simple, by using consistent fonts and color choices. Avoid using all caps or underlined text for emphasis. When using images, try to size them appropriate for display on the web. That's a little bit of accessibility items to consider. So to plan for, hold on one moment. Seems like my slides are odd. Everything looks okay, right? Okay, good. Okay, so create a plan for interactive in-person class sessions. You can do in-class discussions where you provide the class with a list of questions for discussions, ask your students to come with responses by working in small groups, collaborating on their responses. You can do in-class assignments. You can provide the class with an assignment to complete during class. This option allows your students to practice applying and synthesizing their learning while collaborating with classmates, professors, and instructors. Your assignments in D2L allow you to collect and evaluate student work. Managing student work using an assignment activity gives you these benefits. So you have your paperless management of student work. You have your grading and feedback throughout D2L. Your due dates automatically appear in the calendar. Once you create assignments, quizzes, discussions, pull them into the respective module via the existing activities option. And that's what you see here on the screen. So whether it be for an on-ground, hybrid, or face-to-face course, the assignment tool enables you to create news items to help communicate course updates, changes, new information to your students quickly and effectively. Since My Home or Course Home is the first place that your students often see when they log in or access their courses, the news widget is a good area for displaying important information. So use your announcements to remind your students what they need to accomplish to stay on track, point students to internal, external resources, celebrate student success and important events that may be of interest to your students. It's important to realize that the announcement functionality in your courses can be more than just a greeting or a way to wrangle a list of due dates. Your students need to understand the narrative of your course and announcement, and that they're most important tools instructors have to craft that story by creating a roadmap, not only to your course, but to a larger idea of academic and personal success. Announcements in your classes can support students in their day-to-day work while preparing them for a brighter and more fulfilling tomorrow. So Daniel, you want to go ahead and take it away with how D2L can support in-class teaching and learning?
Absolutely. So thanks for sharing all those tips and tricks and pointers on how to create and house your information inside D2L. I want to talk about what do you do with that once it's in there? So D2L doesn't just have to be storage for your files, for your information. You can actually use your course shell in your on-ground course to support your teaching and your students' learning. So there are a few ways you can do that, and I'm going to discuss those now. So the first thing you can do is you can manage those executive functions. So things like planning, organizing mental resources to execute that plan, progress monitoring, and staying on task. All those things can be facilitated, or the LMS can help facilitate those for you. All of those skills that make up those executive functions are backed by decades of research that suggests they're critical to success, not only in learning, but in life. And there's a lot of cognitive science behind it. So the part of our brain that's most involved with those executive functions is the prefrontal cortex. You know that the prefrontal cortex is developing long into your mid-20s. So all of our students are going to benefit from some structured support with those executive function skills. Our students' abilities to execute those skills on a day-to-day basis changes because of a number of variables, things like how much sleep they got, the mood they're in, their stress levels, and the cognitive load they're managing. So this is by no means foolproof, but that's where D2L can come in. You can use D2L to help you establish clear expectations early on, and it can help you be consistent. Karen mentioned using your syllabus. A lot of times we post a syllabus in our course shell. We might refer to it, you know, a few times throughout the semester, but if you use it to establish these routines and refer to it in class, your students will grasp those ideas and be able to perform those routines and expectations more consistently. Use your LMS in class, bring up your syllabus and remind your students of those routines and expectations on a regular basis so they hear about them. You might even leverage the announcements area just as a reminder. But it's important to be timely with those things so your students get those right when they need them. So if you're changing activities, you go from lecture to they're going to get some hands-on practice, remind them of what you expect them to be doing, how you expect it to be done, where things should be submitted. You know, all of those things should be clearly outlined in writing, and you should verbally remind them as well. You might consider using some kind of getting acquainted first assignment to help your students learn the functionality of D2L. So they could do how to view an assignment. They could how to submit, learn how to submit and resubmit assignments. They might need to know how to access and use the feedback. So if you're providing written feedback or audio or video feedback, it's easy to assume our students know how technology works. Don't fall into the pit of assuming that there's anything like a digital native. I don't think digital natives exist. So give your students that support that they need, even when it comes to the LMS. Don't wait to introduce your students to D2L in your course shell. Do that on the first day, especially if you plan on using this throughout the semester. And again, be consistent. Let them know that you're using it and demonstrate the ways you want them to use it as well. And you can go ahead. Oh, and then of course, it's important to guide your students through using that course shell too, so that getting started assignment might be helpful. Next slide, please. D2L can also be used to build stronger feedback cycles. So we want our students, or we know that our students learn best when they have opportunities to make mistakes, and then they get feedback from a knowledgeable source, whether it's you, the instructor, or their peers. Peers may be less knowledgeable, but peer feedback is still valuable. But all that is wasted effort if students don't have a chance to respond to the feedback that they're given and improve their work. So you can use your LMS D2L to create a routine where students submit work, receive feedback, and then they get to act on it and resubmit their work. This is a style of formative assessment, and it sounds like it's a little bit more work for the instructor. But if you build these formative assessments in as part of a larger project where there's a summative assessment at the end, and these pieces that they're doing on and along for practice are actually pieces of the project that they're ultimately going to put together, their end products will be better, their learning will be more lasting, and their satisfaction will be greater. So that said, it's important to separate feedback from grading. Students need to understand that they have the opportunity to fail without it having a negative impact on their grade. Students and instructors alike can kind of fall into this pit where it's all about the grades, and learning kind of takes a hit when that happens, because if everything that a student does is tied to their success in the course, then their focus is on the grade rather than on grasping those skills and concepts they need to be successful and taking that information ultimately out of the university environment and putting it in practice in some kind of a professional environment. It's important to consider the value of oral and video feedback. So feedback doesn't just have to be text-based. D2L has a great area where you can provide audio feedback or create video feedback. You can use external tools like Flipgrid. There are a lot of ways to achieve this, and the things that come with hearing someone speak or seeing someone speak are invaluable. All that nonverbal communication that takes place really helps a student understand what you mean by your feedback. We have students who may not take advantage of office hours or who are shy and may not want to come speak to you face to face. But if they can hear your voice, or even better, if they can see your face when you're giving them feedback, that helps them to receive that, and they're more likely to act on that feedback. And then you also want to show your students real quick, and then give them the opportunity to see what an exemplary project, whatever, looks like, right? So it's not just, and you can use D2L to do this. You could post an example of, here's the project, here's what we're working on, here's what it could look like. You know, show them those examples of what success looks like. And again, D2L can help you to do that. Next slide. So lastly, I want to talk a little bit about cognitive science and practice. So I found a great study by two cognitive psychologists. I'm probably going to mispronounce his first name, but Roediger and Butler. They're two cognitive psychologists who looked at the effects of retrieval practice on long-term retention. And their work showed that the practice of recalling information just as you're starting to forget it is a great way to build long-term memory. So what kind of practice opportunities should we be creating for our students? They listed 3 as the primary means of helping build that lasting long-term memory. The first is retrieval practice, which is the act of recalling information or calling information to mind rather than rereading it or hearing it. The idea is to produce an effort from within to become better at retaining that information rather than repeating the input. So it's creating internal output of that information rather than, again, just continuing to feed the machine inside. Spaced practice would be retrieval practice that's executed at spaced intervals. You may have also heard of distributed practice, same concept. So this would be like practicing for an exam over multiple sessions, so multiple study sessions rather than cramming the night before. And I think all of us can see that the students who choose to cram the night before typically do not have as much success as the students who are spending more time practicing. But you can use your learning management system, you can use D2L to create those practice opportunities. One of the things that is suggested, if you give your students a quiz and it's a formative assessment, you can still, or a summative assessment, you can still create formative assessments of that same material using a quiz, a low stakes quiz, after that's taken place. So they take this quiz, they've had practice, they have a summative assessment, and then allowing them to continue to practice after it's taken place is a great way to try to ingrain those skills and concepts over time. So to me, I think that would help, especially between courses where you have, courses happening in succession and students need to retain information and skills from an introductory version before they move on, a prerequisite to move on to the next one. If that information is lost, then there's really no valuable in that prerequisite course. So if you have a course that builds on, to later courses, give those students the opportunity to continue practicing, and they're going to have better success in the long run. And then the last version of practice would be interleaved practice, which means building regular intervals into your flow so that you're consistently resurfacing key ideas and skills in the form of low or no stakes practice assignments. Again, D2L can help with this. Like I said, if you create a quiz, create 2 low stakes opportunities after that, post one the following week, and then one 2 or 3 weeks later. So you get that interleave practice, you're giving them the space practice, and you're building in those opportunities for retrieval down the line, but it doesn't hurt them as far as their grading. So you're separating that feedback they get from their success or failure on the quiz from a grade that's going to impact their overall success in the course, right? Success doesn't necessarily mean a great grade. It should mean learning and long-lasting ability to retrieve the information you take in. your D2L has a quiz bank feature, so you could use that to pull a few questions from previous units into practice quizzes. You can focus those on core skills and principles that you want your students to master, and make sure that you create space within your grading system so that when students do get things wrong, they can find their mistakes and fix them. Students need time to practice without the threat of grades. So giving them regularly scheduled practice opportunities that are challenging, where they can, they can miss 4 out of the 6 or 6 out of the 10, and it doesn't really hurt them, right? So formative doesn't always have to mean easy. It just means a chance to practice. And so I think it's really important that formative assessments remain challenging, and that it's tied strongly to feedback and less strongly to the grading are super important. But again, D2L can help you achieve all of those things very easily. Once you've created these quiz banks, you can build them one time and bring them into every subsequent version of that course you teach. So this is not something you have to recreate every time your course is delivered. You can, once it's done, you can maintain it, but it doesn't have to be a major build. Next slide. So final thoughts. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, our final thoughts before we turn it over for questions and find out if you would like for us to demo anything for you. Don't be overwhelmed. You don't need to have all the content for your entire course completed before the term begins. After you've set up your course structure in D2L, the rest of your content can be added weekly as the term progresses. When you take traditional teaching tasks and bring them into online environment, faculty instructors will have more time to provide support and additional instruction to students during in-class time, which is reducing the amount of time faculty instructors spend meeting with students outside of the class time. Additionally, as you develop your course content, all of your course content, your learning materials, your assessment activities, your discussion threads, etc., is available to you in one place, which helps keep you organized. The best part is once you've built course content, you can reuse it again by copying components into another course offering. Copying components saves you from having to recreate your courses, and it significantly reduces the amount of work required to create or reoffer the course. The topics we covered today, if you need assistance, any of us on the team can help you. We also have step-by-step instructions available on our D2L teaching resources page. So with that, do you have any questions, or is there anything that we can demo for you?
I do have one final comment, something I meant to say but forgot to. So just to kind of wrap everything up, the idea behind using D2L to support your instruction is that it gives you the opportunity to provide your students with just-in-time communication outside of class. So in class, you're limited to those 2 or 3 instances where you're going to meet with them face-to-face, and you've got your entire class with you most of the time. Your opportunities for interaction with students one-on-one to give individualized, specialized instruction are really limited in that instance. But by using the learning management system to have students submit assignments, to have them review content, for you to provide feedback, that again gives you just-in-time capabilities without having to be synchronous with your students either. So if you provide audio or video feedback, they're viewing that just in the moment that they want to access that feedback so that they can continue that practice. And there's a lot of value in that. So if we're not using the course shell to help achieve those things, to have that contact outside of classroom, we're really kind of putting our students at a disadvantage.
Thank you, Daniel.
Sorry. I have a question about the rubrics on D2L. Currently, we have holistic and analytic rubrics, right? But I remember in one of the trainings, there was a third type of rubric that allowed to weight the each criterion based on its importance within the rubric. I forgot how it's called in D2L. But it was in the training for D2L for our hybrid development course. It was part of, but I don't see it in our version of D12. So I was wondering if you first remember how this type of rubrics is called and if we will have access to it.
That's a great question. I am not sure anyone else on the team aware.
I'm not know, but I'm sure we could do some research and get that answered for you.
Iona,
Mhm.
is the question, can we offer a training, or is the question, can we break down our rubrics by points?
In one of the trainings, and I believe this was the training that we had, some sort of training materials we had for the hybrid courses. When rubrics were discussed, there were 3 types of rubrics showed in the training materials. Holistic, analytic, and a third type that allows for each criterion to have a different number of points. For example, if we have language, this to be 10% of the overall grade for level 4. If we have citation, it would be 10%. So the rubric is much more flexible. And I was
Yeah.
really very excited to see this in the training, but when I went back to rubrics on our D12, I didn't see this type of a rubric.
Mhm. I'm sharing my screen with you, Iona, and this is a rubric from one of my courses. And you can see from the criterion in the right-hand column that they are different scores. So this first criteria was worth 10 points, but the third and fourth and fifth were only worth 5 points each. So you can,
Mhm.
so you can break down your rubrics. And honestly, I don't remember how I did it because it's been a while, but I can go back in and figure it out. So you can do, different types of rubrics depending on what your needs are.
I see only 2 types of rubrics, the holistic rubric, and I don't believe that the holistic rubric allows me to do this on my D12.
Well, mine is the same as yours.
Yes.
What,
Never mind. I got it. Yeah, it's the holistic rubric. Thank you. Sorry for taking your time. Yes, I see it now.
I'm not sure this is a holistic rubric. What is the other type of rubric they're offering you?
The other one is analytic, and I don't see, I'm going back and forth, and now I can close the, just let me zoom your video so I can see what you're showing.
This is an actual rubric in one of my
Okay.
courses.
Yes.
And you'll see here in the criterion score area that some things are worth 10 points, others 9, and others 5.
And may I ask you to go to the design, to edit rubric and see what type of rubric it is? Because at the top, there is a drop-down list which gives
So you'll
you,
see, you'll notice there are custom points. So, and these are all analytic rubrics. So that's the type of rubric that I'm using in the course. And for this particular one, I must have had to select custom points in order to be able to
okay.
differentiate the points.
Okay, so custom points. I'll need to find
So
out.
if you, yeah, and I know you're really tech savvy and may be able to figure it out yourself, but if you find yourself spending too much time, we can muddle through it together, and I'll go back and figure out what it is that I did, since I have, sample rubrics that I could work from.
Okay, thank you. Well, that was a very important piece of information, the custom point. So
Sure. And my team is so, they're so savvy, they can learn it faster than me. Not to say I don't want to work with you. I'm just saying that these are the kinds of questions that, even though I happen to have created a rubric and figured it out, that even if they don't know it, they're so fast to figure these things out. They boggle my mind how quickly they move on and how